I'm Tom Graham. Another progressive defeats a more moderate Democrat in the primaries. Abdul El Sayed has won his party's Senate nomination in Michigan. Today, he told supporters don't blame him for the nation's current troubles.
My name is not raising your gas prices. My name is not taking us to war. My name is not the reason you can't afford your groceries. You know what it is? They're BS policies.
He'll face off against Republican Mike Rogers in the general election. Firefighters continue to battle several blazes in Washington state. Fox Weather's Craig Herrera is in Spokane.
The wildfires continue to burn on with no containment. We have had help as far as winds. The lack of winds has helped with firefighting efforts. It is very dry, though, and temperatures getting back up into the mid-90s on the eastern side of the state.
More than 700 structures have been destroyed. America's listening to Fox News.
"14 years in prison for killing a young woman. A 15-year sentence for a crash that caused 3 deaths. 12 and a half years for killing a child and critically injuring her mother. All true stories, all caused by marijuana-impaired drivers. No matter what you tell yourself, if you feel different, you drive different. So, if you're high, just don't drive." Brought to you by NHTSA and the Ad Council.
Your pet is missing. That sudden panic, the racing questions, the worry of what could happen. It's overwhelming. Petco Love Lost is here to help. This free, nonprofit-powered service uses photo matching technology to search the largest national lost and found pet database, including pets from shelters, neighbors, and social media, helping bring pets back to the people who love them. And it works. Every day, Petco Love Lost reunites pets with their families. A reunion happens every 4 minutes. Simply upload a photo of your lost pet or one you found, and Petco Love Lost's photo matching technology goes to work instantly. You can even register your pet in advance, so if the unthinkable happens, reporting them lost and helping bring them home is as easy as the click of a button. Every pet deserves a way home. Visit PetcoLoveLost.org to register your pet or upload a photo and search for a lost or found pet today.
Your bank account just called. It would really appreciate it if you stopped paying full price. There's no better place to do just that than InsaneRadioDeals.com. There, you can find big-time savings on deals like Rise Up Climbing memberships, radio advertisements, great local food and experiences, and even Liberty University football season tickets, some at more than 50% off their list price. That's InsaneRadioDeals.com. Deals that are so good, they'll make you go insane.
You're stepping into the fast lane on the VTRN Sports app. 93.3 FM and 1320 AM Lynchburg, and asking your smart speaker, open VTRN Sports Lynchburg. Now, take the fast lane through the topics that matter across the Commonwealth. This is the Fast Lane with Ed Lane and JJ Hendrickson.
There are certain fans of the Liberty Flames, the JMU Dukes, the ODU Monarchs, the Marshall Thundering Herd, the non-Power 4 schools in college athletics that cringe when they hear a coach at their program admit that they are the minor leagues. But in reality, I'd actually appreciate that out of a coach, because I want them to know where they are. And in certain cases, cultural fits can help you retain a player longer than they might normally stick around. In others, the money may just be too good to pass up. Liberty basketball last year, the example, Brett Decker Jr. leaves to go to Baylor. Most people think that, anybody on those Power 4 rosters are making at least $1 million per year. It's just hard for anybody to turn that down. But Jamie Chadwell, goes back to what he said Friday in the Fast Lane and reiterated today. Flashback. If you want to cue the old, you ever watch Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, by the way, JJ?
Just like an episode or two. But
oh, you're missing out.
Never like the whole thing.
Any of those 90s shows, because this was back when graphics were terrible. But they used to have like the fake clouds around the screen to indicate they were going back in time, kind of daydreaming. You could be daydreaming, but we can go back in time legitimately here in the Fast Lane to this past Friday because
And guess what? We keep receipts.
right there at Fastlane, Ed Lane, however you listen to podcasts. But Jamie Chadwell admitted as such when talking about building a culture of the right fits for the Liberty Flames. And part of that is understanding that they are essentially a minor leagues right now.
The agents, some of them do a great job. Some are just out to take advantage of young people. And, it's hard to know who's who without everybody being certified. And so I think that's a big challenge, especially at our level, because, we're the minor league, we're the farm system. So we're turning over more players every year than most of your P4 conferences, right? All the G6 is turning over a lot, majority of those, especially in our conference. We're turning over a lot of people every year.
You could go back to our chat with Chip Patterson, CBS Sports Cover 3 podcast host and CBSSports.com. He was with us at the ACC football kickoff a few weeks ago. The interviews are up there as well. Fastlane Ed Lane, wherever you listen to podcasts.
And guess what? We keep receipts.
And Fastlane Ed Lane on the socials for the audiograms of those. You can scroll through that. But he mentioned that. If you want to look at the all-conference teams from the Sun Belt, the Mountain West, the American Conference, Conference USA, the majority of those all-conference players are just transferring up. Heck, there's a hierarchy, as we've touched on in the fast lane, within the power conferences. Miami poaching Duke's best players from last year's team that won the ACC championship. Miami almost won the national, but did not win the ACC. It's a whole other topic. But Miami grabbed the best players. Like, there's clearly in that an indication of the hierarchy. I'd rather have a coach that understands that knows that, and admits that. Because a lot of fans out there might get upset and irritated by it, but I actually have more confidence in a coach like Jamie Chadwell or any other coach who goes into the season understanding that's what it is. And understanding, as Jamie Chadwell mentioned, that essentially part of the job, Chadwell, $4 million a year was what his starting salary is at Liberty. Don't know where he is right now, but we'll just kind of stick with that for a round ballpark number. Then when you're paid that much and you have the support staff, and Liberty can resource pretty well relative to the non-power programs, them, Memphis, Boise, South Florida, and Tulane are kind of the top end spenders in the non-power 4 programs. You got more resources. To whom more is given, more is reasonably expected. And again, if I'm a Flames fan, I go back to what Jamie Chadwell said Friday in the fast lane.
And so I think that makes it even a lot harder, especially when you're at a Christian university trying to find that right fit and saying, hey, this is who we are, this is what we're about. When maybe they don't care about that. They just care about, hey, I want to come in and play, and I don't care about those things. And so we got to do a really good job of finding kids that want to be a part of that.
That's the goal of the staff. If anything, I like hearing that out of the staff, because this is not just Liberty's program saying this. Like, if you're a Flames fan and they're active on social media, and we're appreciative of that, by the way, Fastlane, Ed Lane, Facebook, especially Twitter and Instagram, where they will voice their opinions and disagreements and criticisms. This is what everybody's going through. Like, we had one today criticized, it's another year where the Flames don't know what they're getting at quarterback. Who does? JMU made the college football playoff last year. Their quarterback's now at UCF. UCF, not big, but they are in the Power 4. The best quarterbacks from USF followed the coach to Auburn. The best quarterback from North Texas followed the coach to Oklahoma State. It's just the reality of it everywhere. And the thing is, that makes me believe even more Jamie Chadwell and what he said about every freshman's goal when they come into a program like Liberty or anybody in the non-power programs.
Every freshman that comes in, they want to transfer, and they want at least 2 years at P4. That's their goal. They want 2 years at P4. That way, if they go somewhere and get hurt, they still get another extra year. That's their goal.
So I agree with Jamie Chadwell. I think, first of all, the fact that he understands that's good. The fact that he understands this is the roster, because it helps frame the goal for how to get your team up to speed in each one individual season. The difficulties of building culture, how it's on the coaching staffs and their organizations to vet players for their proper fits. And if anything, I want a coach that knows it, understands that, and admits it, because that's what it is. You may want them to want to be at Liberty or JMU or ODU forever, but that's not the realistic world for the majority of them when they have the opportunity to move up, understandably for better competition, but also for greater dollar bills, y'all. As Kenny Powers reminds us. And therefore, I know we're about to beep it out because Jamie Chadwell says hope a lot in this next soundbite, but that's the ambition, it's kind of like us here at the Virginia Talk Radio Network. JJ's in this camp right now where, he just graduated from Virginia Tech. We're always excited to have him on board. But we lost 3 producers this year. We understand where we are. All of them are at the point where they're in their late 20s now. They're in their 28, 29, 30-year-old range. When you get to that point, either you're growing with us or you're probably going to use us to grow somewhere else. I mean, I'm pretty sure our fearless leader, Gary, would want me to be realistic about it. He and I are, which is we will give opportunities. We have opportunities. They're great. You might even grow within us and be able to expand maybe, within a time here, but inevitably there may come a time where you just grow somewhere else. So we've got firsthand experience. I can speak from our end where I've liked people that are growth oriented. JJ's a great example of that right now. Look at our social media. He's doing so much of the work on that side of things. Promos, contests, all sorts of ideas that are percolating. A lot of it is JJ coming up with and especially carrying them out and executing it. That's what we want. We want people that are hungry and goal-oriented. And we understand that maybe a time that comes that JJ wants to leave. And I'm pretty sure I've told you this, JJ, so it's not like I'm like breaking news to you here in the fast lane.
No, this isn't a surprise.
No, that the only thing I ask is, tell us when it's happening so that we know and we can start working on finding an inevitable replacement because I understand where we are. That's what you should want if you're a Flames fan, if you're a JMU Duke, if you're an ODU Monarch, is coaches that understand that. And your tie is going to be more to that program. Even the strongest of cultures, like Liberty men's basketball with Richie McKay or softball with Dr. Richardson, they're all battling this where you're going to keep players around. You're probably going to have a better chance to retain them longer, which is where, because Liberty is one of the more well-resourced non-power programs, I think this hope and goal of Jamie Chadwell's, it's not unrealistic.
And so what I'm hoping is if a freshman comes and plays, you come to this institution, you come early and you take summer school, you can graduate in 3.5 years. If you really you can graduate in 3.5 years, taking summer and enroll early. And so I'm hoping that it'll allow some guys to stay or willing to stay longer because they want that degree. And maybe we get a freshman for 3 years instead of maybe, 2, because you're barely on to 2 right now, truth be told. And so I'm hoping that maybe allows them to stay a little bit longer because they see the development, they see they're on track to get a degree, and they can get it and still have, if they're good enough to go to P4, they still got enough opportunity to do that and still play 2 years. I hope that trends that way. Maybe it won't. Maybe I'm crazy on that. That's what I'm.
That's Jamie Chadwell. We're beeping out the word hope, by the way. We didn't beep it out there just to explain why we were doing it. We don't consider that to be a viable game plan. That's why we do it in the fast lane. But honestly, it makes sense. Like most of these schools, they're more challenging academically than their detractors would let you believe. But this is not, the Ivy Leagues, if you will, which apparently it's actually just harder to get in. Once you get in, it's really not that hard. There are schools that are that way. And legitimately, like, it's actually hard when you get in and when you get in. So maybe I should use like a Virginia or a Stanford as an example of those that fit that category. It's navigable to do that. And therefore, if you're decent in high school, as far as academics, you probably come in with some credits built up, which means you could have a game plan to go in. First year is kind of treated like a red shirt. Second year is the first time you see the field and your playing time increases. Third year, you ball out. And then you've got 2 years left to go somewhere else. You basically graduated from Liberty and you can go somewhere else, get paid a lot of money, and essentially let them bankroll you for getting a degree on top of that. I am not naive, JJ, to believe that all the agents and handlers and people that are around are going to care about that. But if you're smart and you want to use the system right, and I think there actually are athletes that are fits for this, it actually makes a lot of sense. And that's why I think it's okay for Jamie Chadwell to say it and ultimately put the burden on himself and his staff to find the right fits for Liberty.
Yeah, I have a lot of respect for Jamie Chadwell here. I think one of the most important things that you can possibly do when you're when you're building a good team is being realistic and understanding the position that you're in. And from the sounds of it, Jamie Chadwell is doing just that. He understands they are not quite the final destination for a lot of guys, but even when you're not the final destination, you can still build something great with guys working towards that. And Liberty's done a really good job of it. Obviously, they have a little bit more difficulty finding these guys just because of the culture around the team. Not everyone's cut out for it, but Jamie Chadwell's done a really good job. And to hear a coach come out and say this so clearly, I feel like you don't hear that very often. But if you're a Liberty fan, I think this would instill confidence in you and Coach Chadwell.
It should. And Jamie Chadwell's not wrong for bringing this up. The cultural fits element, again, is the key for pulling all this off.
The biggest challenge is when you don't know a lot about them, but you still have to have the need, and you lay out what your values are. Hey, this is what the standards are, and you're trusting that they want to be a part of that. And you're also, but maybe they just won't. Maybe you're just the highest bidder too, and you don't know. I mean, that's the thing with some of the you don't know some of
those people legitimately don't care about anything else. That's part of what Jamie Chadwell was alluding to when we spoke with him Friday in the Fast Lane. The full interview's up.
And guess what? We keep receipts.
At Fast Lane, Ed Lane, however you listen to podcasts. But look, if you're a Liberty fan who's frustrated with Jamie Chadwell, they have regressed from 12-0 to 8-4 to 4-8 the last 3 seasons. It's reasonable to be frustrated. Again, I think there's some understanding of that with the health, but I think Jamie Chadwell's even aware enough to know that if you have another bad year this year, that seat gets scalding hot and he may get thrown off of it. But he's not the only one who's saying this. I go back to Justin Sparrows. A lot of great content's up at Fastlane, Ed Lane.
And guess what? We keep receipts.
On our socials from when we spoke with him at the Virginia Cavaliers Football Media Day, about 2 weeks ago. But Jamie Chadwell, the volume of agents. Remember what Justin Sparrow said?
There's a lot of different voices out there. There's a lot of different people. There's a lot of different representation that exists in today's environment. And, there's very minimal regulation that exists for the college space when it comes to agents. And it's hard to kind of decipher in some cases who is really the voice. Is it, and some guy, I've talked to players in the portal that have 4 different people that are representing him. So who's the right one to talk to?
Who's the right one to talk to? 4 different people. 4! As LeBron reminds us.
Not 1, not 2, not 3.
But 4 different people representing them. Like these are, people forget, a lot of them have no clue what they're doing. So they come into and you have to try to vet these people. I think in high school it's easier because you've got more of a runway to figure it out. But Jamie Chadwell saying guys come in and they want to go, spend 2 years at Liberty and move on and spend 3 at a power program. I think if you can flip it, it's actually the right approach and move. This is not Jamie Chadwell saying, hey, we want him to be at Liberty for 4 to 5 years. Like, that's burying your head in the sand. That's, oh my gosh, does this guy know what he's talking about? Saying you want guys there 3 instead of 2 years because you basically got the plan of first year you're kind of physically maturing, second year you see the field, third year you break out. And you may have a Brett Decker Jr. to use the basketball analogy of his learning curve got expedited. He had a really good sophomore season, and it was obvious midway through he was going to go to a higher bidder, which Decker did, winding up at Baylor. Like, you're going to have some of those, but I think if you've got that mindset of, we'll probably have them for 2, but if we can get 3 out of them, great. That's trying to squeeze the best out of a situation, which to me, again, wins and losses are ultimately how Jamie Chadwell is going to be judged. But going into camp, at least if I'm a Flames fan, I go, this guy at least knows what he's talking about in the modern era of trying to put a team together and get them on the same page in a rather quick period of time. And in part, because if freshmen want that, then you're not trying to sell them something that's unrealistic, which is going to cause them to tune out. And that, to me, is the lost touch. Coaches checked out, players have checked out on it, the Q factor, the quit factor. I think that part is where you can go, all right, everybody at least might be on board and on the same page for the Flames. So you can go with a level of optimism that this year's team entering camp and probably entering the season is where we would expect them to be, reasonably speaking.
Yeah, I mean, this is just the reality for Power 5 or non-Power 5 school or Power 4, excuse me, Ed. In college athletics these days, you're not going to be the final destination for these guys. And the quicker you understand that, the better your team is going to be, I think. A big key for it is keeping guys bought in. Like you mentioned, if they're getting to the point where they think they're going to transfer, I feel like you may see some effort levels start to decline a little bit. So I think Jamie Chadwell, a big key for him is keeping guys engaged with the team, even if they don't see it as their final destination. Keep them playing well, have them leave everything out on the field, because at the end of the day, they're not going to be there forever, and you have to be ready for that and prepared.
Essentially, you're selling them, look, you're auditioning for your next job, your next skill, and your next place. Again, fans may not want to hear it, but that's where you root for the coach that can continue to do that year after year. Where if you're Liberty, I think you should want Jamie Chadwell. Now that the health situation seems to be behind him, understands the urgency of the matter, get behind him if you're a Flames fan and go, hey, let's see if he can get this thing rallied, and you can, he's got a long way to go to get to like a Richie McKay or a Dr. Dot Richardson status where they've been there for so long that they become synonymous with the program. Like, we're a ways off, even with the success in year 1 of the Fiesta Bowl. But you can start to rally, because I think it's the way most programs are going to be, is you're going to rally behind a coach much more than a player. And someone who understands and agrees with your mission and is well-resourced relative to the competition at their level. Again, I go back to it. Like take Liberty and JMU, for example. Certainly ODU, put them in the JMU category. They're JMU's better resource than they've ever been. It's not where Liberty is. Doesn't mean you're going to keep everybody at Liberty forever, but you can keep them around for a while, make it a good, worthwhile environment. And if they believe that is part of their goal and mission to develop on people, I'll steal the Liberty slogan. I don't know if it's still the one, but it's been for a while. Training champions for Christ. Then if that's the goal, you accept the fact that at some point they're going to leave your, nest, if you will. They're going to leave the furnace and they're going to move out somewhere else because they're going to get a hot offer. See what I'm doing with all these pun on words for the Flames? They're going to get to that point. And that's where, again, I want coaches that want that out of players because then you're getting them hungry, motivated, and bought in for a short period of time. When we return in the fast lane is a 1-year contract, enough to keep the newest member of the Washington Commanders bought in. You dig? We'll answer that when we return here in the fast lane and get the analysis from Super Commanders fan, a left-hand upper himself.
Those haters can't stand us. Left hand up. Who are we? The Commanders.
Our very own JJ Hendrickson. All that next in the fast lane.
Hey, small to medium business owners, if you're frustrated with slow IT support, high costs, or paying for services you just don't use, it's time for a change. Hi, I'm Colt with We Fix Stupid Computers. We provide reliable on-site and remote support tailored for businesses just like yours. And we go beyond just fixing problems. We empower your staff with real tech knowledge so they can work smarter every day. From repairs to training to full IT support, we save you time, stress, and money. Call We Fix Stupid Computers, 434-525-8590, where smart support meets real savings.
End zone, light them up, touchdown Liberty.
The atmosphere at a game is amazing. It is like family.
I've been a season ticket holder for 14 seasons. The atmosphere is electric.
On the near sideline.
It's an experience. You look forward to it every week.
I like the pageantry, the band.
The pride of knowing that this is our university.
2026 Flames football season tickets are on sale now. Get yours at lufootball.com.
Summer is here, and there's no better time to find a place you'll love to call home. Whether you're looking for a cozy apartment, spacious townhome, or a quiet single-family home, Brownstone Properties has options designed for your lifestyle and budget. Enjoy the season with comfort, convenience, and peace of mind. Don't spend another summer searching. Let Brownstone Properties help you find your perfect home today. Visit brownstoneproperties.com or call 434-385-1025.
Brownstone Properties, where home is at the heart of everything we do.
Your bank account just called. It would really appreciate it if you stopped paying full price. There's no better place to do just that than InsaneRadioDeals.com. There, you can find big-time savings on deals like Rise Up Climbing memberships, radio advertisements, great local food and experiences, and even Liberty University football season tickets, some at more than 50% off their list price. That's InsaneRadioDeals.com. Deals that are so good, they'll make you go insane.
Hi, I'm Zach Mackey, the voice of Virginia Tech Hokies men's basketball. Start jumping. This is your home for the Hokies. VTRN Sports 93.3 FM and the VTRN Sports app.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
I guess this is a little bit of breaking news to come back into the fast lane. We were going to touch on this topic in number 1, but we may just flip the order around right now.
It's time for Fast 5 at 5-ish. 5-ish minutes on 5 relevant topics done around 5 p.m.-ish. Ish, because our counting skills are kind of ish. Let's start with number 5.
If you go look at it on a prediction market, you would have to lay a lot of money down to get a decent return on your, I'm going to use air quotes here, investment. Aaron Donald returning to the Rams. That number is probably getting even more out of whack because today he worked out for the Rams, according to the NFL wires. It's inevitable this is going to happen, JJ, right? It's just a matter of when he comes back.
Yeah, it does feel like an inevitability, Ed. It does at this point. I mean, just thinking about him and Myles Garrett sharing a front is absolutely terrifying for the rest of the league. I can't think of a defensive duo we've seen on a line that will be playing at the level that those two guys, assuming Aaron Donald comes back and looks like himself.
Yeah, I don't know if there's the volume of depth. I know Kobe Turner's a good defensive tackle as well. if either of them gets injured, that's where the concerns could pop up. I do think a lot of it could get derailed if Matt Stafford gets injured on the offensive side of the ball. It could kind of be the version of the Broncos when Von Miller helped them win the Super Bowl and Peyton Manning's arm was basically just falling off. But the Rams are a really loaded team. They are top heavy. That is my one concern. Even if Aaron Donald comes back, is they are. I know people have ragged on Philly, and I think some are justified because they got these deferred contracts, which basically means they're trying to circumvent the salary cap and doing it with all the extensions they have. The Rams are kind of in the same boat, but the Rams are even more top heavy. The stars, I think, are better for the Rams than any other team. Stafford, Donald, Garrett, among others. Nakua, if he's mentally engaged, which is a bit of a big if. If they're not healthy, that's my one concern on the Rams. I would not bet them right now to win the Super Bowl just because about 5-1 odds is where they are. And if you're just wondering from that perspective, I think they deserve to be the favorites. But I want to see midway to latter part of the year because all it takes is a couple of injuries at the key positions. I do not think they have the depth around it. So I just would want to see Stafford, Donald, and Garrett in particular stay healthy because if one and certainly a couple of those guys, I'm presuming Donald's coming back, if they get seriously injured and miss a good chunk of time, I do think it could derail the Rams probably faster than it could another team that is maybe deeper but not as top-heavy.
Yeah, the depth is absolutely a concern. I think the top-heavy point is really great. They did say today in his workout he did not wear pads in the tryout, so I wonder just how close he actually is to returning if he does indeed end up doing so, because it's been, a year, 2 years since he played last? I don't think you can come and just shake off rust like it was nothing, like he never left. But if there was any defensive player, I think, who would have the ability to do it, it would be Aaron Donald, and I'm sure he'd be happy to come back to the Rams.
No doubt. I mean, the level of excitement around him in general is big. There's obviously been the appeal from the beginning. I don't think anybody's going to be shocked. I'd be more shocked if Aaron Donald does not come back to the Rams than if he does. Speaking of additions, number 4, your Commanders person, or as we call them, left-hand uppers.
Those haters can't stand us. Left hand up. Who are we? The Commanders.
And they have a new member of their team. Granted, don't put him on a boat with scantily clad women and rap music playing. Do you get the reference,
yes,
JJ?
I do, unfortunately.
Google Tusi, if you will.
Yeah, the little pink powder.
Yeah, exactly. Stephon Diggs, Tusi, I think it's Tussi, shows how much I know about this. I only know of it even existing in the drug world because of Stephon Diggs and the scantily clad women on the boat last year down in Miami. He is signing with the Washington Commanders, a 1-year deal worth $12 million. I'll actually say this. This is the time, if you're the Commanders, to bring a guy on board like this. Like, he's not Brandon Ayuk level of just what's going on in the guy's head, but there is an element of what's going on with Stephon Diggs and judgment decisions. Get him right now. Camp is beginning. Everybody's kind of getting into the proverbial bunker, I'm using air quotes, of an NFL operation. So for the next 5 to 6 months, and it's a 1-year deal with Diggs, you've got him. At the end of the year, he's a free agent again, so he's not technically your problem. Not saying something couldn't happen. We know Diggs has some other transgressions that may or may not have arisen with chefs and masseuses and other people from past off seasons. But assuming you're cool with that with the Commanders, I actually like the timing of this move for the Commanders getting Stephon Diggs. Baggage aside, and I mean, look, on a scale of which baggage I'd rather have Stephon Diggs' baggage, not saying it's great, than Brandon Ayuk and wondering where that guy is even mentally.
Yeah, I'm actually really glad you mentioned that because that was one of my first thoughts when I saw they signed Stephon Diggs. Now, on the field, I do think this will go a long way for the Commanders. The off-the-field issue is my biggest concern, but at the end of the day, I would much rather have him wearing burgundy and gold than Brandon Ayuk. I think he'll be much better for the team. He is 32 years old. He'll be 33 come November, but like you said, it's a 1-year deal, relatively low risk. I think the reward is worth the signing. He's a 4-time Pro Bowler last year. He did squeak in as an 1,000-yard receiver, finished with 1,013 yards, 85 catches on 102 targets and 4 touchdowns. The Commanders did not have a solidified wide receiver, too, before this signing. I think Diggs is going to come in and instantly fill that role. There was a bit of questions between who it was going to be before. I think this opens up the slot for Antonio Williams, who they just took in the 3rd round out of Clemson. Played about 3/4 of his snaps in college out of the slot, so I think this will open the field up for him even more if he does end up winning that job over Luke McCaffrey, who I've heard has a chance to take it.
You know, it makes you wonder about Jalen Lane because you're starting to mention a lot of wide receiver names that are not the more athletic Lane, the former Virginia Tech wide receiver. But if I'm the Commanders, I'm fine with this in the sense that it just applies more pressure to some of those back half of the roster guys like a Jalen Lane or a Luke McCaffrey or I forget the name, I forget his last name, the guy from UNLV who's shown pretty well in camp early on. Lake Lewis mentioned him last week in the Fast Lane.
And guess what? We keep receipts.
At Fast Lane Edlane if you want to get all of the info on that. It also allows Antonio Williams to progress but not be thrust into a role where too much is expected out of him too soon. Meanwhile, speaking of decisions off the field and potentially, or in this case, literally derailing a career.
Number 3.
I'm actually really excited for this. Netflix is set to release Untold. Have you seen this?
I have not.
Untold, the testimony of Vince Young.
Oh, wow.
August 25th. Did you know about the whole Vince Young story?
I don't know the entirety of it. Of course, I'm familiar with his time in Texas and in the NFL, but I'm not sure how his career ended up ending.
Party animal after he started having high-level success at the University of Texas. Really struggled with that in the maturity side of things. He has been very transparent about that. I don't know if it's to the point of the regret side of things. And look, I've made poor decisions, and in some cases, I don't regret them. I think God put them in my life so that I could learn from them and hopefully advise other people not to. Not saying I want people to do that, but I think there's the, hey, you can flip a bad into a good and be part of your testimony. And I'm curious if that's the Vince Young angle and approach to this. He's got a son who's a baseball player. He's admitted his approach to his son is a lot different. But I am fascinated by this because oftentimes you get the curated version of an entertainer, athlete, celebrity, whomever it is, when they're involved in a documentary. That's why I'm a Novak Djokovic tennis fan, but I have questions about how much you're going to get out of him in the upcoming documentary over the next month, considering he's still playing. I'd rather see, even if he's part of it, once he's officially retired and you get more of a candid version, kind of like Rafael Nadal. I'm curious if Vince Young is going to give us the candid version. I want to watch to see if it is, but I'll be paying attention to the reviews because if it is, it makes it very compelling and fascinating because he was a meteoric rise. He really helped put Texas football on the map and back on the map, but clearly a lot of baggage that has been solidified with him. Meanwhile, no other way to artfully transition from that to
Number 2.
Jim Toman, the former Liberty baseball coach. He led the program to a couple of NCAA regional berths, got the 2013 Liberty team to a regional, and really one of the best college coaching jobs you can see in terms of developing a baseball program. He is one of those who's responsible, along with Dick Worthington, but of putting Liberty baseball on the map is Jim Toman. Passed away at age 83, battled cancer on Tuesday. I think the most interesting angle to this is, are you familiar with Damian Sordelett, who covers the Virginia Tech Hokies for Roanoke.com?
Yes, I am.
And he used to cover the Liberty Flames and the high school sports scene for NewsAdvance.com. His replacement is Bryson Gordon, who will join us in about 5 minutes here in the Fast Lane. But Damian Sordelett said that Jim Toman was so gracious that Damian was able to interview him for a few minutes the day that Toman was fired at Liberty University. That's a testament to somebody's character. And people, there are a lot of areas where you can snicker at the Liberty way, and they've sometimes have brought that on themselves. But to bring people on who have such character that even on a bad day for them, they can see the bigger picture and be gracious enough with their time, that in and of itself is worth a hat tip to the legacy of Jim Toman. But I think in hindsight, Flames fans appreciate, I would say more because they've had success with Bradley LaCroix and Scott Jackson and others, but you start to appreciate somebody even if you maybe didn't when they were initially dismissed.
Yeah, that's a really incredible story. I mean, you think of all these times that in modern days, athlete will lose a game and then refuse to do media availability. Just to think about him losing his job and still be willing to do an interview, I really do think that's a testament to his character, and it's sad to hear that he did pass away.
Number 1.
Another hire, fourth one for Brian White, Virginia Tech Hokies athletic director, P.J. Mullen, who comes from Rutgers. He's going to be the chief marketing officer and the deputy AD for Virginia Tech. He's also worked with the ACC network broadcasting operations. He'll oversee marketing and fan experiences, communications, and the creative department at Virginia Tech in terms of marketing. I like the background from Rutgers. I know they're not big time relative to the Big Ten's top programs, Penn State, Michigan, Ohio State, Oregon, that class, USC. But he does come from the Big Ten. You've got a guy in a marketing role. All the Brian White hires scream revenue generation and multifaceted backgrounds. It fits that. I don't pretend to know everything else about this hire. That's where we'll turn to our friends at TechSideline.com for more info and expertise. But on the surface, I'll just say it makes sense, and that's where I like it if I'm a Hokie fan.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see what kind of ideas he brings from a revenue generation point. Like he said, that seems to be Brian White's whole plan, get as much money into the programs as possible. I know my mother, a Rutgers alumni, just texted me. She's very happy to hear that he's part of the program now. Shout out to my mother. But I'm really excited to see what Brian White has to continue to build here at Virginia Tech. So far, I mean, I don't know a ton about the people he hired, but they all seem like good hires. And it definitely seems like he has an overall plan and a direction that he wants to take the athletic department.
For me, it goes into because, again, these are not all my expertise in terms of building out like a college administrative staff. Does this make sense? That's my general question for a lot of these is, it's like the soccer stuff. And I know we need to get more at some point into all of that. But does this make sense? That's kind of my logical line of thinking on a lot of these things. If I don't know it, can I at least just sit there and go, all right, to the average common person, I'll put myself in that camp. Does it make sense? The Virginia Tech hires, in that sense, are answering an affirmative to that question, and that is a positive. When we return in the fast lane, does Bryson Gordon agree with us? His colleague, Ian Curtis, by the way, who's done great work, is going to have a really compelling article in the next day or two about Jamie Chadwell's comments from earlier today that we discussed in segment 1 in the fast lane. If you want to hear our thoughts,
And guess what? We keep receipts.
at Fastlane, Ed Lane, however you listen to podcasts, including Facebook Live and YouTube. BG will share his thoughts on that, plus observations from fall camp and Seminole District Football Media Days, which were today. All of that still to come here in the Fast Lane.
Mark Dalton here with Terry Volkswagen. Get ready to fall head over heels for the perfect VW SUV. One size doesn't fit all, though, and that's why Volkswagen has an SUV for everyone. From the compact and affordable Volkswagen Taos to the tech-packed Tiguan and the spacious Volkswagen Atlas. No matter which one fits your lifestyle, you'll love the comfort, performance, and safety. Stop by Terry Volkswagen on Forest Road in Lynchburg or check us out online at terryvw.com. Terry Volkswagen. You'll love our cars.
Lunchtime just got an upgrade. Stop by Macadoo for our $8.95 weekday special and grab a legendary sandwich at an unbeatable price. Choose from your favorite classics, the Coney Island, Betty Bop, Ragtime, or Stogie. Classic sandwiches packed with savory meats and flavors in between fresh bread. Make it a meal by pairing your sandwich with a sidekick, a warm cup of soup, or crispy chips. Great food, cozy vibes, and the best deal in town.
It's time to share breaking that ball. Just to be there, the only one. Just to be there at Market Dues.
We'll see you at the Dues.
Hill City, the Howlers are home all week long. Friday, a 2025 Hillcats Championship Ring replica giveaway prior to a 6:30 p.m. first pitch. Saturday, a 6:30 first pitch for Military Appreciation Night presented by Davis Heating and Cooling with fireworks following the game. And Sunday, a Howlers backpack giveaway before a 2 p.m. start. Get tickets at hchowlers.com and howl out loud.
When you walk into Haley's, you see the size and selection of a big box store. Over 19,000 square feet of appliances and mattresses. Leading appliances like KitchenAid, Whirlpool, Maytag, Genair, Speed Queen, GE, and Monogram. And mattresses like Sealy, Serta, and Tempur-Pedic. So what's the difference? A family, locally owned business. And a staff committed to servicing you over the entire life of the product. That means before, during, and well after your purchase. Visit Haley's today, just off Ward Road in Lynchburg. Haley's, quality that counts.
Step into the Fast Lane 24/7 at JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fast Lane Ed Lane on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and wherever you listen to podcasts. Now, back to the Fast Lane.
I'm going to politely request from our next guest, Bryson Gordon of newsadvance.com, to not slander any former members of the Virginia Talk Radio Network. Because he now has a kindred spirit here in the Fast Lane. A fellow Boston Red Sox fan, our new producer, JJ Hendrickson. You are pumping your fist for those watching at Fast Lane, Ed Lane, and VTRN Sports on Facebook Live and YouTube, BG. So we will ask you the same thing we asked JJ the other day. It's up at Fast Lane, Ed Lane on the podcast.
And guess what? We keep receipts.
What grade would you give the Boston Red Sox for their Major League Baseball trade deadline acquisitions before we get to the other real sports?
Yeah, well, this is the most pressing matter. Obviously, is Boston Red Sox on such a busy day. Yeah, I think they deserve a B. I think they should have done more. I think they fell a little bit short, obviously, because they made a big trade for Curtis Mead last week, like 5 games before the trade deadline. Obviously, he played in one game, 2 at bats, and he won't factor into the team this year. So you can't really hold that against him for going forward with a guy like that. I think they did a great job in going to get a guy like Adley Rutschman. The Red Sox been a prospect hugging team for some time now, and so pushing some chips in, getting Win Wright, a top 5 catcher in the game. I think Rutschman is still probably that, and so I think in general I was all in on the trade deadline, and then seeing Miller come in last night, the addition from the Giants, just throwing some filth, makes you feel good about where the team is going. And then you look at the American League, like I said, not to besmirch the name of any former VTRN producers, but I think the Red Sox look around the AL and they're like, man, who can stop us, right? Not in the terms of like they're so dominant, but in the terms of the American League is so weak. I think it's just a down year in general. So I think it's wide open. I think they did what they needed to do and push some chips in, and I think it's gonna be fun. The last 2 months of the regular season.
Now that we got that out of the way, on to more pressing matters with Bryson Gordon of NewsAdvance.com. Your colleague Ian Curtis, who has done phenomenal work this summer, by the way. First of all, take a moment and brag on him. Like, y'all hit the jackpot with interns this summer.
We did. I mean, we got Ian, by the way, as you mentioned, Ian Curtis. He is a Texas A&M Aggie, a proud Aggie. He's been spending his summer with us here in Lynchburg. Obviously, can't say enough good things about him. His work has been on our website. I think I've shared a lot of his work as well. He tagged along with me to camp today, which, by the way, great opportunity for him, as a guy in college to be able to cover Liberty. He covers Texas A&M for his college newspaper. And so to be able to join the Liberty camp and see what it's like to be on the beat for a couple days is pretty cool. And, he's been awesome. And I think, as you were alluding to last segment, he's working on this great thing about what Chadwell had to say today about kind of the future of college football, 5 and 5, and things to do with the class of 2022 court ruling. And so a lot of interesting stuff, and I'm sure we'll get into it. But he's doing great work. Ian Curtis, by the way, future star in this industry, way further ahead than guys like me and Ed.
Yeah, I mean, he's gonna have a big head start, basically on our level, kind of like JJ. Pretty soon they're gonna zoom past us, and we're gonna just be sitting there like proud contributors to the success of someone superior to where we might be. Bryson Gordon, NewsAdvance.com, is with us, by the way, here in the Fast Lane. You mentioned that, the future of college sports. Our first segment today was about Liberty Flames fans. They may not want to, but it seems like they should be appreciative that they have a coaching staff that is willing to embrace the understanding that you're probably not going to get your best players for their entire time. And it seems like Chadwell at least wants to have a plan to keep them at Liberty where they can benefit long enough with the degree in development while still going on to greener financially and otherwise pastures.
Yeah, you make great points. I mean, the whole 5 and 5 thing is going to be really unique for Liberty, and Chadwell leaned into it today, and I think it kind of gave an idea of almost like a recruiting pitch. We talked about it earlier. You and I when we were there, it felt like it was an idea of like, hey, we can develop you for 3 years. You obviously don't have the constraints of playing 4 games and or playing more than 4 games and losing your red shirt, things of that nature. And so I think it was almost like a recruiting pitch from Jamie Chadwell to be like, hey, we can be a program who could take in for 3 years, build that first year, really get the fundamentals of playing what it's like playing college football, and we can give you 2 really good years as a guy who's a contributor. And after those 3 in total, you got 2 years of college football left remaining. You can go play at the power conference level, do what you need to do. And I think in general, coaches who are willing to be flexible, you see this in business and in the world all the time, right? Like the leaders who are flexible, the leaders who don't allow change to happen to them, they kind of affect the change. I think those are the leaders who are pretty successful. And not to say, Jamie Chadwell is leading from the front on this. I think a lot of teams have kind of fallen on this, fallen in this idea here this offseason in terms of like, how are we going to be, working with this new ruling, working with these new guidelines to better our program. And I think just in general for Liberty, I think Chadwell laid out this great plan and something that might work for them. But you think about it also, is that a sustainable way to build a program that's going to be winning and winning? Like, can you always guarantee that you're going to get them there for that 3rd year? Because what if you have a class that you're investing in and they leave after 2? So there are going to be downfalls and pitfalls to it. But I think, for this to be this early in the process of what we're learning with 5 and 5, it's kind of cool to see, he's already kind of been thinking ahead on something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I found it refreshing to understand that. And, he mentioned this in our chat Friday in the Fast Lane, but also today, the reality that there are going to be some players where they may have delusions of grandeur. Maybe they want to just stay for 1 to 2 years. Correct me if I'm wrong. My thinking from how Jamie Chadwell outlined it today in terms of his vision, 3 at Liberty, 2 at the Power 5, is first year is basically like a redshirt year anyway. Second year, you burst onto the scene and start getting playing time. Third year is really when you make a mark for yourself. And at that point, it becomes obvious that you just have to go for the next situation. Am I reading into that correctly? How Jamie Chadwell seems to be viewing this as well?
Yeah, I think you nailed it. I mean, and look, that first year, right? Because the college football is going into this age-based model. I think, the last few years in the transfer portal, especially with a team like Indiana, who was so old last year, you're going to see the old teams be better. And so, that first year, you're not going to want to roll out a ton of 18-year-olds onto the field who, probably are undersized, probably not prepared to play on the college football level. You're going to want to take those guys and give them time to mature physically, and give them time to mature as adults and to get used to playing college football. And then that second season, you can kind of unleash them. And I think you see, especially with the way things were with the red shirt, you were seeing guys play 4 games and kind of get a little bit of taste, and then it's like building. It's like momentum. They're stacking blocks on each other, and you really see it explode in year 2. And I think that's kind of what they wanted to do. I think it's interesting though, because it would kind of take a whole change from what Chadwell's kind of been doing here the last few years in terms of Chadwell has leaned in, at least in this last class, leaned in heavily in the transfer portal, going heavily after, guys who have played at, a group of 6 programs who are coming across, not transferring up or down, but they're coming straight across, to the G6 level and to play, at Liberty for a year or two and just kind of finish out their career here, kind of fill in some holes. It would take a really good investment, a multi-year investment back into the high school recruiting ranks to really build out that class. And so it wouldn't be something I don't think you can do on the fly. I think you have to really commit to that strategy and be dedicated to it.
BG. Bryson Gordon, that's his Twitter account, Instagram, and also newsadvance.com are the ways to keep up with him. And we've profiled the work of his colleague, Ian Curtis, who's going to have a really good article about this subject coming out in the next couple of days about the direction of college athletics and how Liberty and Jamie Chadwell are approaching their role within the understanding of that. You also brought up this point. We'll shift over to the football-related topics of the Flames and then high school sports in just a moment. But the understanding the cultural fit, it seems harder than ever before, but how much of that is Liberty's going to have a natural vetting process anyway, in terms of there's a faith-based component, there's a realistic understanding of that. And, guys that may be just wanting the bag, similar to where Liberty is, but maybe not the old cultural component. There are other options out there, and it seems like Liberty's aware of that.
Yeah, I think you're definitely right about that. And as you mentioned with the vetting process on a whole, right? College football is such that these are a bunch of teenagers. You're not going to field a perfect roster, on a year-to-year basis. I think you're going to find very few programs few and far in between who field a perfect roster on a year-to-year basis with perfect kids, perfect, college kids. But I think in general, Liberty does do a good job of that. And I think they do a good job, at least you've seen it in the last couple of years, of guys who tend to want to stick around. I think an example of that, even on this year's team, like Brenton Williams. Brenton Williams obviously came to Liberty from Auburn, transferred down from the power conference level, played for a year, had the opportunity to leave, thought about leaving this past offseason, stuck it out. Are those faith-based reasons? Are those comfortability reasons? Well, it has something to do with enjoying the culture and enjoying what he can get out of Liberty. And so Liberty just has to continue to position themselves for guys like that. I think you see that there's certainly a demographic of player out there, right, that Liberty is unique to be able to acquire. You see guys, I think you see this specifically with the basketball program and what Richie McKay has been able to do, some of the guys that they've been able to bring in, just these really good, seemingly kids who have their head on straight, really good culture. I think culture geniuses, guys who are willing to grow in the program and not have themselves impact the program. And so I think with football, it can be tough because you have so many more guys on the roster. You have 5 or 6 times the basketball roster. But I think in general, Liberty can build around guys like that. They've done it in the past. Certainly, Malik Willis comes to mind when you think of guys who had that kind of character level. And so, just going forward, I think Liberty needs to certainly hone in on guys like that and make that part of that pitch, right? Hey, it's a 3-year investment. You're coming here. That's 3 years we can pour into you. You can graduate with something that maybe means more to you off the field than necessarily on the field.
You, I'm sure, get your interesting comments. We share them sometimes. Yours are at Bryson Gordon. Ours are at Fastlane Ed Lane and JJ Hendrickson 27 on our social media platforms. One of them came in. This person goes by the name of Jordan. By the way, first of all, we're always thankful for people that think enough of what we have to say to interact with us, so we're appreciative of that. But it kind of transitions from this discussion on roster construction to what we're seeing in training camp. Jordan's comment is, the fact that 2 seasons now, those are his words, don't know his starting quarterback at the start of training camp is concerning. Am I off to say that my brushback is, how many group of 6 programs do understand that? And you can even look so far as neighboring Virginia schools where ODU and JMU had great quarterbacks, and now they have to replace them too.
Absolutely, and you look just down the road at JMU. Also, JMU they came into the season last year, and people weren't sure who they were going to roll out at quarterback. Barnett was there, but they also brought in Sluka, who people thought maybe would have an opportunity to play there. And so, I wouldn't call it the end of the world. Certainly, I would say that it's not ideal that Liberty is enduring a quarterback battle. I think if you were to look at the roster and look at the depth chart for what it is, I think that you can kind of come away with some conclusions on maybe who's the front runner. I don't want to sit here and say that one guy is, one guy isn't, because it's very early. It's kind of hard to pick out what we see in practice a lot of times. But I think in general, I think just kind of the feel around the program, the feel around, who they brought in the offseason. I think you can look at a guy like Deshaun Purdy and say, he seems like a great candidate to start, right? A guy with pedigree before he arrived at Liberty. Certainly questions about his passing accuracy. Certainly, questions about whether he can be a serious quarterback at the Group of Six level. But I think in terms of pedigree, in terms of who wanted him before he came to Liberty, right? You look at some of the teams that recruited him before he ended up at Wake last year. Obviously, very notoriously, Florida thought he thought he was going to go to Florida and compete with DJ Lagway for the starting job, and obviously that didn't come through. But you look at the whole situation around Purdy, and it looks in general like he's a starter. You step away from that and you look at what Liberty has elsewhere. We have a guy like Jalen Henderson who has spent a lot of time at the Group of Six level and in the college football level, kind of bouncing between the Group of Six and Power Conference. And he's a good player, but I think in general he has a unique skill set, and Liberty wants to be able to get something out of that skill set. And then with Vasco, what is the downside, right, of allowing Ethan Vasco to get healthy and join this quarterback competition in fall camp, right? I don't think there's a downside to it. I think if you give him the opportunity to be 100%, show what he's got. Maybe he picked something up, in his improvement. Maybe he picked up more arm strength that you didn't notice last year, and something changes there. But there's no downside, at least, in allowing Vasco to compete. Now, I think where you run into some issues is when, certainly we were there last year, when the quarterback battle spills out into the last week of the offseason, and you're going into game week uncertain about who's a starter. That's when there are going to be issues. And so I think Liberty, he mentioned that he wants to have this wrapped up by, practice 14, wants to have it down to 2 guys by practice 9 or so. I think that would be a good timeline. I think that if they want to have this, they need to have this wrapped up pretty much by like August 20th, August 21st to really feel good about, I think, where things are going.
BG, you mentioned the timeline. How much easier is it now there's one transfer portal window, things are more concrete than they've been before, and you've got a more clear, for now, eligibility picture in college athletics? How much easier does that make it for Jamie Chadwell and maybe being more convicted in how he's going about this quarterback competition?
Yeah, I think he mentioned it today. Obviously coming into the fall with some at least notions about who's going to be your starter, right? You take in spring. I wouldn't say is the most important thing, but you take it in, and it certainly matters, and maybe matters a little bit. More kind of with 2 guys like Purdy and Henderson who have very contrasting styles, and you want to see who kind of fits better in the offense. But I think just in general, like without having that second portal, with being able to keep that same team from January, that first team you bring in all the way to the end, there are going to be so many benefits for I think a lot of teams. I think you're going to see the really good teams in college football are the teams that not only are the teams that have been together, everybody's been together since January, but are the teams that have that continuity from last year and are able to get those guys in from January and keep them in the building for 8 months. And you don't have guys shuffling off, 2 or 3 times in the offseason. Like those are your guys, and you've been able to know and feel convicted about what your needs were, and you fix it in the first portal, and everybody's kind of on the same accord. Where I think it could be a downside is that, certainly in that second transfer portal window, you're able to address needs. Does it hurt for teams at the Group of Six level like Liberty, who get poached seemingly time and time after getting into that spring portal? Absolutely. I think of 3 defensive linemen Liberty lost last year that were huge departures in the spring portal window. But I think getting this, for Liberty, getting this opportunity to have this whole team, it kind of feeds into this year-long storyline for them. I think, they have some overhaul on the defensive side of the ball, but I think in general, the theme of the team is like, there's a lot of guys who are really, upset about how last year ended with the 4-game losing streak and obviously the bowl streak coming to an end. I think that those guys have been able to, it feels like at least, rub that off onto the guys that have been here since January. And because those guys have been here since January, and as opposed to maybe April or May, it means so much more because you're in that culture for 3 more months. It means a lot more, and I think it's going to make for a more connected team. All that to say, that doesn't mean Liberty's going to be a better team. I think the talent's still going to be the most important part of the equation. You can be the closest team on paper, you can be the closest team in the locker room, but if you're not, if you're not physically prepared, or if you're turning the ball over in too many instances, like Liberty did in a lot of occasions last year, it really doesn't matter. And so that's what's gonna rule today is how much they've actually improved on the field.
BG, Bryson Gordon, newsadvance.com. Great work there for him and his colleague Ian Curtis, who are putting out great work on the Liberty Flames. We'll pivot off of that for just a moment, BG. Seminole District Football Media Days today. I know other districts have adopted this in Virginia and beyond, but they seem to do a really good job of putting this thing on there in terms of timeline and accessibility. Are you willing to join in giving a hat tip to Brad Bradley, who has been kind of the mastermind behind this concept the last couple of years?
Absolutely. I will tip my cap to Brad Bradley anytime. He did a phenomenal job with Seminole District Media Day today. I want to say, obviously we have a busy schedules as people in Lynchburg this time of year. It's not like this all the time, but it's really hustle bustle whenever Liberty's opening fall camp. So to have Liberty opening fall camp on the same day as Seminole District Media Day, thought it was going to be a little bit of a headache, but both parties, Liberty was great this morning. And I think at Seminole District Media Day, Coach Bradley, he really respects everybody's time. As a football coach, he probably wishes people respected his time a lot more, and so I think he realizes he can give that to other people. And it was an awesome day. And to hear from 8 coaches, all the players that were there, I think it was great. I think it set the tone for what's going to be a phenomenal season this year in the Seminole District in general, in terms of storylines, competitiveness. You think about how much talent the league lost last year, and I don't think it matters. I think that all those teams that lost a ton of talent, we talk about Heritage and Jefferson Forest lost a lot of talent. I think that they just backfilled, and I think both of those teams are going to be right there in the same situations where they were last year, competing in the top 3 or 4 spots in the district.
You mentioned all of that. This is my big initial takeaway from this, so you can nitpick this. I think the top of the district, you probably got your 3 teams, LCA, Heritage, and Jefferson Forest in some order, but the bottom of the district is getting a little bit stronger, and therefore you probably got a better path to where there will be more challenging matchups throughout Seminole District play when it gets going.
Yeah, I think you make great points with that. I mean, you just look back to last year and think about how much tougher the district played last year in comparison to a lot of the seasons it has in the past. Obviously Rossburg had a tough season. They went 0-10. That was a down year. But Liberty, who had been on a 37-game losing streak riding into last year, they won 3 games after they include a forfeit that they took that was credited into the end of the season. So that bottom, that 7th place finisher in the Seminole, that 7th and 6th place finisher going back upwards towards those top 3 with the improvement of those teams is important, and that really includes. I think Brookville's going to be improved. Obviously they can't play in the postseason this year due to the VHSL sanctions, but I think in general, just them being an improved team and wanting to get a post a winning record, being the number 1 goal they said today, I think that's a big deal. I think EC Glass, obviously in the playoffs last year, and I think they're perennial contender to make the region playoffs. They should be a little bit better this year and maybe take another step up to being a 6-win team as opposed to a 5-win team. And then Amherst County, I think you look at Amherst County the last couple of years that they've had, last 3 years that they've had, feels like it's time to make that step forward into the playoffs. And the games that are going to matter for them are those games against Brookville, are those games against EC Glass, who EC Glass is a region rival for them. And so those middle of the Seminole games for teams like Heritage and EC Glass and Brookville, they're not walkovers. They're going to be really tough games, and I think that's really what determines whether the Seminole has 3 playoff teams, 4 playoff teams, or 5 or 6 playoff teams.
Yeah, my juice is flowing, BG.
It's almost time, man.
It is. Only a couple of weeks away from scrimmages, benefit games, and 3 weeks from now, we will be previewing the first meaningful Friday night football action, including Jefferson Forest Cavalier football on our sister station, 100.9 FM, and the Virginia's Talk Station app. BG, we'll keep it locked to newsadvance.com. Really looking forward to your colleague Ian Curtis's piece on the direction of college sports. Looking forward to all of your work on the Seminole District and everything that's going on into that. We'll have some drops at Fast Lane, Ed Lane, on our socials and here in the Fast Lane as well with team previews. And the next time we link up, we might even get into some of those teams as we start unveiling those previews as well.
Yes, sir, man. I can't wait. Looking forward to it's going to be a fun football season.
It is. Bryson Gordon, newsadvance.com, stopping by with us today here in the Fast Lane. And yes, we're not quite sure of the schedule for how we're going to unveil all of our Seminole District previews. To get my usher on for just a moment. Sometimes it depends on where my sales calls lead me. if I just happen to be in Rustburg on a given day, oh, what do you know? That's the team we preview. We're not doing it in alphabetical or standing order. We're doing it in convenience of my sales schedule order. It may not be what you would do in normal scenarios, but we are not normal at the Virginia Talk Radio Network.
No, we are not, Ed. We're always trying to do whatever's best, whatever's most convenient, but we want to bring the best coverage possible to you guys.
We'll have more of it, by the way, tomorrow in the Fast Lane, 5 to 6 p.m. on the VTRN Sports app. As that smart speaker, open VTRN Sports, JJ Hendrickson 27 and Fast Lane Ed Lane on the socials.